Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I will point out one thing. When I took this picture and I selected it, my wife said, "Why are you wearing this? Why are you wearing a hat? Why are you wearing your glasses?" And I thought to myself, and I was thinking, is that this is me in my moment when I am sharing one of my passions in diving. My name is Dave Caldwell, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, let's back up there. There we are. I'm going to go through a little bit of something that I put together that has been a culmination of about 38 years of my diving experience in training divers. It's really kind of plays very well off of what Damien had just been explaining to us. And what that comes down to is that the dive industry, we have to look at it differently now. And we have to become more innovative. And what we're going to do is we're going to speak to you about how we bridge standards and innovation, and how we had a team of like-minded individuals that all worked together to implement a program that we referred to as the NAUI Leadership Conference. It also incorporated what I like to think of as the freedom to teach, and that is one of our mantras within the NAUI organization. So I really don't need to go into too much detail because Damien did a great job kind of highlighting some of maybe the gaps or the inconsistencies within the dive business. The first thing I do want to point out, though, is that, and just to touch upon a few of them briefly, is that low-cost prioritization within training is really not an ideal solution. And the reason being is because it minimizes, I should say, let me back up. It doesn't necessarily meet the candidate's needs, as well as you don't necessarily know what type of candidate that you're going to get, or whether or not that's actually going to be the right candidate for the training. Niche offerings, as Damien touched on, is that niche offerings potentially lead to high cost. It minimizes growth. I do say that with a grain of salt because over the past 25 years, my wife and I have been running a niche business focusing on technical wreck diving charters. That's about as niche as you can get. But understand, this is how we created our business model. This is why it's been successful for the past 25 years. The candidate's readiness varies. Learning is nonlinear. Everybody comes in at a different level. And some of the things that we need to do is we need to address that. Their expectations coming into the class can vary from one person to another, as well the outcome of that expectation. And then some of the things that we notice is that there are leadership gaps, all right? And they do exist. One of the big gaps that I see is we are not giving the instructor candidates or professional candidates non-technical skills. We give them loads and loads of technical skills, but we don't give them the non-technical skills. So for example, a dive educator really has to be an effective communicator. They need to be an effective listener, and they need to make sure that they can be able to have that ability to build trust within the people that they are working with. So why did we want to go down this journey of creating this conference and doing all this extra work above and beyond? Well, the reality of it is that we wanted to create value within the training model. We wanted to build a leadership that had strong skills, strong competencies, and they were a force multiplier within the industry. We wanted to be able to meet the students where they are coming into us. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to identify the gaps and address them. We wanted to be able to strike a balance between having that standardized curriculum that every agency out there has, and what we have added in for personalization, and again, that freedom to teach. That's why we did what we did. So, how do we structure this and how do we put it together? Well, first we built upon 5 pillars. The first being the standardized NAUI curriculum for all of our leadership development programs. That was pretty simple. But then what we did is we also created peer circles, and we had multiple collaboration that enhanced shared experiences, and cross-learning. Those peer circles included a leadership team, an instructor staff team, and the candidates. In order to create that personalization, we provided and we created individual development plans. While maintaining momentum through the class, we were able to hone in on specific areas. We were able to broaden the scope through diverse discussions by having subject matter experts come in and present to us and create an expansion of topics. We also utilized video recordings for briefing and debriefing. And the reason we did this was because we wanted to provide clear, real-time feedback after each session, and we wanted to give immediate opportunities for improvement. So, the hybrid, we have kind of had to put this together and figure out, and this is kind of the part that I worked on, is how do we build this structure? And we utilized a hybrid approach, and rather than honing in on one specific area of leadership development, like for dive masters, what I decided to do is I wanted to take dive masters, I wanted to take instructors, and I wanted to take instructor trainer candidates. And I wanted to put them all together into one program. The program itself, the conference, it ran over 4 continuous weeks. We had 3 weeks of virtual sessions, 16 in total, for 4 hours for 3 nights a week. And believe me, there was a lot going on in that time period. After we did the virtual sessions, we met in person for 5 days at selected sites. By having such a rigid schedule, it was really important that the participants, had attendance and that they were there. So why did this format really make any difference, and why did it matter? So the integrated courses, for example, what we were trying to encourage is cross-learning and expanding the peer circles. Typically, the way in which courses are taught today, we have a dive master course. That is the peer circle. But what if we can expand it beyond, and I can include the instructor candidates, and I can include the instructor trainers? What this has done is I've opened up the lens on that peer engagement. By having, again, that rigid schedule, it really they had to be there. They had to be accountable. They had to be prepared. When they came in, the other thing also is we wanted to make sure that we had a broader footprint. So as you can see, we took the curriculum, we've opened up dive masters, instructors, instructor trainers, but also by utilizing that virtual format, what we wanted to be able to do here is we wanted to be able to expand our geographic area. So as an example, the first conference we did, the Northeast Leadership Conference, that was actually in the Northeast. We had 3 sites. We had New Jersey, we had Boston, and I had Toronto. So those were all the in-person locations. What this did, by utilizing that virtual format and really front-loading a lot of the information for leadership training in the very beginning, what it did is it provided a tremendous amount of flexibility, and it really reduced that burden of having to drive every single night to the class. All right, everybody came home, they had dinner, and then we just started right in. It was nice and convenient. To give you an idea, we had a number of public safety divers who were moving into the leadership side of their program, and they were actually able to be at the firehouses online conducting the program with us. So you can see how that reduced the overhead burden. The next thing is the host sites. This was really important. How did we select New Jersey? How did we select Boston? And how did we select Toronto? We selected these sites based on our needs, not what was actually available. How many times is commonly heard in the industry is like, well, we go to this dive site because it's convenient, but yet it's a miserable dive site. It's cold, it's dark, and nobody really wants to be diving there, but it's convenient. We did not accept that. We wanted to make sure that we had a professional classroom. We wanted to make sure that we had a pool that was accessible on our timeline, and we wanted to make sure that we had an appropriate dive site. So, how did we put this together? We created a leadership team that had a very diverse background. We had experts in recreational leadership training, technical leadership training, public safety leadership training, scientific, dive safety officers. So we had a very expanded group of leadership with a broad background and a lot of experience. We actually created a deep dive into specific topics. For example, we included Gareth Locke to come in and speak to us on human factors. I had Michael Patrick DeCharles, ocean master and maritime attorney, come in to speak with us about the anatomy of a legal proceeding the day after an accident occurs. Every curriculum out there talks about risk management over and over and over again, but what actually happens the day after there's an accident and that legal proceeding now begins? We gave them that anatomy. I invited in Dr. Jason Rumura from International Institute of Astronautical Sciences. Say that 3 times fast. And Jason's group is utilizing scuba to train citizen astronauts that are actually going to space today. His program also includes a underwater simulated Genesis lockout system that is the door hatchway to the International Space Station. And he is utilizing scuba to facilitate training astronauts. I included a colleague, Danny Milovsky from Argentina, to come up and speak to us on what we refer to as the NAUI Recreational Equipment Configuration, or NREC. This is a program that NAUI offers that is about backplate, wing, long hose, and it focused specifically on entry-level divers. And what we wanted to do is create as much information to touch upon so all of the candidates can be familiar with these topic areas and understand that there are other things outside of diving or outside of leadership that they can actually get themselves into. By having the video, how many times when you go into a class and something happens in the very beginning, yet 25 minutes later at the end of the dive, we totally forget about it. But by having a backup and being able to look at the video and debrief with it, now we're able to show what happened, and then now we're able to provide opportunities for improvement. Why did it matter having a broad leadership base? Because we were dealing with a lot of different types of candidates coming in from a lot of walks of life. We had technical divers coming in that wanted to become instructors. We had recreational divers. We had public safety divers. And by having that leadership team with that broad experience, we were able to relate to them, not necessarily as a group, but at least one-on-one. They understood that we know what they're doing and what they're going through. And we're able to share that experiences that what we really have that passion for. We were able to access and engage industry leaders, and we were able to talk about things that were typically not included in a leadership program under the standard curriculums. We were able to provide the candidates with clear pathways to achieving their goals and objectives, and there was actually minimal subjectivity within the evaluation process. That was something that goes back to the leadership, is that we were very much aligned in our evaluations, and we were very fair. This is the slide I actually like the most, and why is because really this is what we've encountered when we were teaching these people. All right, this is where it kind of gets cool. We found variable levels of academic knowledge and technological knowledge. All right, we had candidates that were coming in that had very little understanding about physics, physiology, and dive tables or decompression theory. We had people that came in the first night of class and he kind of raised his hand, stuttering a little bit, and multiple people. Sorry, you're going to have to excuse me, but this is the first time I've ever been on Zoom. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we've addressed a gap. We've had people that came in, they were just not familiar with PowerPoints. Although we had a number of people who were professional educators, college instructors, they found it difficult at times to be able to give, content, good content and effectiveness in their presentations, because you're being evaluated on a very fine, specific criteria, and you are timed on how much you're able to give in that time period. So the other things that was kind of surprising is the actual swimming and snorkeling, somewhat inadequate. And then last off, when you're pushing people beyond, you find that there's going to be those opportunities where you're going to strike emotional chord with people. So how did we prepare people for this? We provided an academic pre-conference preparation program. Prior to the conference, we had the opportunity that people that needed it could get tutored in advance. We created extra pool time so we could actually work on watermanship skills. And we were always solution-oriented with open conversations with empathy. The candidate feedback is they came and they felt supported and they felt safe. They were willing to share. They understood that the feedback was balanced and it was, as I said, fair. They were all increased their confidence, their personal and professional development. And really, they became part of a team and they became part of a community. So, when we put it all together, we found that all the candidates completed the program. They may have not completed it all on day one. The leadership team was able to collaborate and enhance professional depth and experience building. I learned just as much as the students did and the candidates did. All of us did. Our overhead was actually minimized because we were utilizing team resources. For example, that facility, the pools, etc. By putting the dive masters, the instructors, and the instructor candidates together, we were able to strengthen the NAUI network. We were able to expand the inclusiveness, including human factors, risk management, public safety, technical. And we were able to expand the proficiency with virtual meeting platforms and technology that enhance e-learning. Very quickly here, I do have a couple minutes. I do want to acknowledge, before I finish up this slide, my leadership team, our leadership team, starting with the top left-hand corner is Mark Kriasa, Vin Malkowski, Hasten Chalk, and Frank Rakowski. This was the first team. The second group, we added 2 additional leadership, Rusty Davis and Dave Oakes. They actually participated in the Southeast Leadership Conference. So understanding that leadership education is really more than a business model. It has to be adaptable, you have to be creative, and honestly, you have to be committed to the candidates and to your students. We have to build a strong dive community that fosters long-term success, and as Damien pointed out, mentorship. This is an important thing within building the community. Our financial opportunity, we had a larger geographic pool of candidates who are willing to travel in. We were able to have a local leadership team that had resources available to us. We were able to use the hybrid virtual curriculum, and this overall maximized our revenue. So I asked, leadership education is an investment. The returns generate revenue and long-term value within a community. So I ask, how will youth rethink leadership education to create value today? Thank you.
Thank you.